And I mean, it's all fine. There's nothing wrong here, but just doesn't feel right. I think when most people fantasize about moving to Florida, they're like knees deep in their vacation, swept away by the sunshine and vacation vibes, strolling down Main Street, USA. They're thinking about moving to a place like Winter Garden. I mean, it's not too far from anything. We're only like 25 minutes from the city, and yet we feel like we're in one of those places you'd have to drive 200-300 miles to find if you were somewhere else in the country. It's picturesque, it's got that small town vibe, and yet it still has so much to offer. We noticed it right away. I mean, during our first trip, which at this point was around a year ago, just shy of a year ago, I spent almost an entire day just wandering around downtown alone, talking to the people that I stumbled into. And I had so many amazing conversations. The vibe of this place was just so welcoming. It honestly felt like something you'd expect to see in a Hallmark movie. Okay, little side note to give you a bit of backstory. So we don't live in Winter Garden. We actually didn't even have Winter Garden on our list of places we were considering moving to before we moved to Florida, however many years ago at this point. It just didn't come up. There was like a very specific list of things we were looking for, and Winter Garden didn't make that list for one reason or another. But it didn't take long after visiting Winter Garden for us to consider Winter Garden as a possibility. It was like 1 or 2 trips out before we started talking about maybe adding it to our list of places we would consider moving in the future, like when the time comes. Which I mentioned because that's how inviting Winter Garden is. It's not just a place that says, yeah, you'll have a good time while you're here. It's the type of place that really invites you in, tells you to sit down, relax, stay for a while. And that's just not something you get everywhere. Certainly not in places that are so close to everything as Winter Garden is. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit out of the way compared to some other places, depending on what you're looking for. But in the grand scheme of things, this is like just down the road. But that small town charm, that thing that so many people love about Winter Garden, the reason that so many people choose to call Winter Garden home, it's changing.
Several business owners in the last week announced their leases are not being renewed.
In fact, through Orange County property records, West Choose confirmed 9 commercial buildings, 8 along Plant Street, were all sold in the last year, leaving locally owned businesses who lease these buildings with nowhere to go.
Very direct, just we have no interest in extending or renewing your lease.
She's not alone. Her neighbor, Three Birds Cafe, is also going.
It says dated January 15th, no further extension will be given at this time.
Driftwood Market down the street told me they're leaving in May.
The City of Winter Garden's Living Local campaign notes more than 2,000 businesses are majority locally owned.
Right here is one of the businesses that recently just closed, the Three Birds Cafe. And just alongside it right here is Polka Dots. The owner of Polka Dots has been very vocal about her concern when it comes to this change. I want to say that they've been in business for like 19 years.
That is not what this community is about. That is not why I moved my business here.
And while, there's always like 1 or 2 really loud voices every time something like this happens, 1 or 2 people that we tend to hear over and over in the interviews, they're hardly the only people who are concerned about this.
I heard it on Facebook. It was on Rants and Raves, and all of a sudden it was all over. And once I saw it, I said, I have a friend that's coming from out of town this weekend, and I told her, we got to come downtown and we have to buy.
Small businesses aren't just a storefront. They're families and employees, students having their first jobs.
I mean, even just wandering around today, I'm hearing a lot of chatter from the businesses themselves and their workers, as well as the residents who are wandering back and forth, doing the thing that presumably lots of people come to this part of town to do. People are not happy with the way that this is going. And I mean, who could blame them? This shift is, honestly, I can't think of a word outside of monumental for this area. I mean, just look around. This place thrives on small businesses. I mean, it's what lines these streets, and these aren't struggling businesses either. A lot of them are thriving.
To my ex-landlord, I said, hey, you know, if it's a market value, we'd love to be at market. We can afford it. And he said it wasn't a question about that. It's just he didn't want to give us an extension so that the building looked more appealing to a buyer, and which it did.
I suppose the next question, the most natural progression of this conversation is, what's the hang-up? I mean, I understand that people are unhappy when things change. Change is one of those things that's hard to deal with. You know, from my perspective, the big issue here isn't solely the change. I mean, that plays a role for a lot of people. But I think that one of the things that really has people concerned is the uncertainty.
At least 9 buildings in downtown Winter Garden were sold in 2025. 6 of them to the same buyer, who already has ties to the Winter Garden area. However, in more than a week that has passed since we've contacted them about their plans for the properties, we've yet to hear back.
And I know, again, uncertainty is just one of those things that comes with life. It's definitely one of those things that comes with the risks of doing things like opening up a small business. But here in Florida, especially in the Central Florida area, more specifically the Orlando area, I'm sure that this applies elsewhere as well, but I'm here, so this is where I notice it. The whole concept of like, we'll just wait and see how this goes, it takes a bit of a different shape. I mean, you really don't even have to spend that much time here to notice it either. Just wander around the greater Orlando area and you'll see a lot of abandoned places, a lot of unfulfilled promises, a lot of things that just kind of start and never get finished. And look, while there is, without a doubt, a long list of reasons that the residents and business owners of Winter Garden are concerned, the reason that the vibe here has shifted, that uncertainty I think is really at the heart of this issue, especially because the person who has bought up places like the Edgewater, which is a historic hotel, that was almost 6 months ago at this point, and these other buildings, they're not sharing their plans. They're not commenting on what's going on. So when you combine that with the fact that the city is openly communicating about how their hands are tied,
it does not have the legal authority to intervene in or control these private real estate transactions or lease decisions.
However, the city says it can control zoning categories, along with architectural restrictions to keep the small town look.
What does that give the people who have chosen to move here and plant roots and start a life here? What does that give them to work with? Because it doesn't feel like a lot to me.
For a town that's built itself on shop local, these local owners wonder what happened to that vision.
These are small businesses that are thriving and just getting the rug torn out from under them. Just for what? And nobody knows.
Now look, this is the portion of our regularly scheduled programming where I try and wrap up everything that we've talked about today in this neat little package, maybe say something meaningful that has me not only summing up my thoughts, but feeling good about walking away from this topic. But the truth of the matter is I don't really have that today. You know, as soon as I heard it on the news, I knew it was something that I wanted to talk about. I knew it was something that I wanted to share with you, make you aware of. But like, what else is there to say? What else is there to do? I mean, I can say the thing that other people have probably said, you know, go out and support small businesses. That's always great. And I do think that you should absolutely do that. Drive out of your way to experience something interesting and new. My goodness, this isn't even that far from the places that you're vacationing. But I don't think that that would have helped the situation at all. Of course, we can always keep our ear to the ground, supporting the small businesses that were impacted by this when they do pop up, wherever it is that they pop up next. But, I mean, outside of that, what else is there to say? I really do feel at a loss for this one. It's not one of those things I would like to be talking about when it comes to a place like this, but it's certainly not one of those things that we can ignore, at least not in my opinion. But hey, if you want to hear a little bit more about Winter Garden, check this video out. This is our vlog from our first visit out. We think you'll enjoy it. Yeah. Till next time.